This podcast is around the subject of the so-called FEMA camps. Anyways, this podcast will talk about FEMA camps and like why they're here, if they're here, and should they be here. Let's start with the if they're here. There has been several documents stating there's been some documents, I believe there's some documents that actually state about FEMA camps in America, or concentration camps. Now, concentration camps was the old term we used for Hitler, because the concentration camps were like a program where they worked the Jews till they couldn't work anymore, then they execute the Jews. You know, in Adolf Hitler's war against the Jews. Anyways, there is actually evidence of the FEMA camps. There is actually documents that actually reveal what is going on. And I'm going to try to upload those documents or put it or surround it around my podcast, because these documents, they reveal what's going on. Anyways, there was an image of protesters after George W. Bush, the madman, became our president and started taking away our rights. There were some protesters where it said something like, it's just after Bush kept violating human rights and getting away with it. One of the protesters had a sign that said, "What's next? Concentration camps?" And so, it is not a pretty sight to see. Someone says on freedomfiles.org, the extortion system of the ruling elite. The extortion system, oh wait, it's the same thing, but it's like the HTML version. But anyways, it's understanding the info in their book could save your life and change our world. The Cabal Capitalists and the Agenda for Genocide, a must read. Federal Emergency Management Agency. What is the FEMA? Simply put it is the secret government. This agency has powers and authority that go well beyond any other agency in this nation. What can FEMA do? It can suspend laws, it can move entire populations, it can arrest and detain citizens without a warrant, it can hold them without a trial. It can seize property, food supplies, and transportation systems, and it can even suspend the Constitution of the United States. And that is why this is a scary thing. And I believe they're going to use Barack Obama to try to stir up trouble. I'm not sure if it's racial or not, but they're going to stir up trouble so that if they stir up trouble, then people will fight back in a civil or revolutionary war. And so that means there's a chance that we're all going to go to these so-called FEMA camps. In fact, Alex Jones says that there's a lot of documents. That, look at the documents and you'll see the truth. I mean, there's a lot of documents and evidence out there that something is going to happen. In fact, I've got the document here that talks about what the government is up to, but apparently the document is not there. It's probably a cover-up, but anyways. This document shows what is going to happen. I guess since I can't find the document right now, I'll talk about why, if they exist. I believe they exist because there's been a few videos circulating around the internet. These videos show fenced-in areas and showed a few, I think, military or either United Nations vehicles around the place. Some people have said that that they had shackles, that there were shackles connected to the rail cars, and it sounds like it's not to keep people. It's not to like keep people from getting in. It's to keep people from getting out. Of course, because if they want people to go into these camps, if these camps exist. Well, now I found the document. It's a Congress of the United States House of Representatives. It is a document. And I think it's from W.G. Bill Hefner, 8th District, North Carolina. Wow, I can't believe that, my home state. Anyways, it says Mr. Zeal Setzer, P.O. Box 4198, Salisbury, North Carolina, 28145. Dear Mr. Setzer, enclosed is the information you requested pertaining to the Army's policy and guidance for establishing civilian inmate labor program and civilian prison camps on Army installations. This information has not yet been published. It is currently at the printers. However, it has been funded, staffed, and does reflect current Army policy. I hope you find this information useful. With countless regards, I am sincerely yours, Bill Hefner, Member of Congress. And so this document states that a member of Congress has set up FEMA camps, that they are actually working and staffed. And some look like they're abandoned because they're not really too much work right now. They're setting them up for if we riot, to where if we riot or go to civil war or revolutionary war. Because now already states are starting to not dislike the federal government. I heard that, like, with the Real ID Act, states did not want to follow Bush's laws, so that's the real reason why we never had the Real ID Act, because you could simply avoid the law by going to another state, because that state resisted. I mean, Bush couldn't just murder our governors as terrorists. Yeah, I mean, they couldn't just murder the people of our governors, because then that will mean that we're a global dictatorship and that people would start fighting back immediately. Well, anyways, states can actually break away from the federal government, kind of like how we broke away from Britain. States have the constitutional right to break away from Britain because they set up something to where if we become like Britain again, and we can't take it anymore, and we can't fight back because we'd be considered terrorists, states would have the right to separate themselves from the federal government, separate themselves from the United States. So that means states can actually leave the country. States can actually remove themselves from the federal government list. That means that there would be 49 states that's part of the United States, or 48 states. That would probably mean that troops will be on some of the state borders, because they'll become like country borders. Well, they set this up in case the federal government becomes so powerful and becomes so corruptive like Adolf Hitler in Germany. So if anytime the federal government asks states to do something they don't like, they can fight back against the government legally by declaring their 10th Amendment right. States can start breaking away from the federal government. And they say that's the only way to stop the New World Order, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about FEMA camps. Anyways, the federal government's been managing these so-called FEMA camps, and one of them is Camp Lejeune, which I actually got to be on. One time I got to be on a trip there because someone I know had a military ID. So and we wanted to go vacation at, what do you call that? Yeah, it was Camp Lejeune. It was in one of the beach areas. I think it was Onslow Beach. But anyways, I didn't see any of these FEMA camps along the road as we got to Onslow Beach. But I wish I could have saw